It's a discourse titled Neo-Humanism is the Ultimate Shelter.
Because what we're looking at today is essentially a massive software update for human thought.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. It's a philosophy that connects directly to PROUT. And just as a quick reminder for you listening, PROUT stands for Progressive Utilization Theory.
Right, progressive utilization theory.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when you combine PROUT with Neo-Humanism, you get a framework that doesn't just, diagnose why the world feels so fractured. It actually provides the tools to rebuild it.
And if you are listening to this as a student or maybe a young professional just stepping out into the workforce, I want you to know this mission is specifically for you.
Absolutely.
Because looking at the state of the world right now, the economy, the environment, it can feel paralyzing. It breeds a very specific kind of modern despair.
It really does. It's heavy.
But today is all about replacing that hopelessness with a massive, energizing sense of collective purpose. We need to figure out why the default setting of society feels so unfair. So let's go to our first reading and establish the root of the problem.
Let me just set the tone here. Today's humanity has no doubt made some progress in intellect, in wisdom, and in rationality. Human beings came onto this earth about 1 million years ago. The feelings and sentiments, hopes and aspirations, frustrations and disappointments, cares and anxieties, pleasures and pains, tears and smiles of the present-day human beings are almost the same as those of primitive humans.
Right, so the tech changed, but the feelings didn't.
Exactly, the text continues. The difference is that the emotions and feelings of present human beings are deeper than those of their ancestors. During the past 1 million years of human history, proper justice has not been done to human beings. A particular class, a particular section, has always been given greater importance than others, and in this process, the other sections have been neglected. For instance, when a soldier sacrifices his life on the battlefield, his death is announced in bold headlines in the newspapers. But the same newspapers do not mention anything about the great hardships that his widow faces to raise their small family after the death of her husband. This is how one-sided justice has been meted out. Although the matter concerns grammar and is not easy to change overnight, man, in common gender, includes both man and woman. Then why does not woman also mean both man and woman? This is also lopsided justice.
Okay, wow. Let's unpack the mechanics of this, because the core argument being presented here is that traditional humanism, like the baseline way we've structured our empathy up until now, has always had a massive blind spot.
It has. It leaves someone behind, always.
Yeah.
Past humanism was fundamentally fractured because it was a humanism with very strict boundaries. It claimed to care about humanity, but in practice, it consistently prioritized one class or one gender or one specific group over all the others.
And that story of the soldier and the widow is such a piercing example.
It really hits home. Society glorifies the visible, dramatic sacrifice, the big headline, but completely turns a blind eye to the quiet, grueling, everyday struggle of the widow who was left behind. It's an incomplete, highly selective compassion.
And that selective compassion is just baked into everything, right down to the grammar we use, like the text points out with the word man being used as a catch-all.
Yeah, it's institutionalized.
If we bring this into the modern workforce, it's kind of like looking at a massive corporate launch. The CEO or the lead developer gets their face on the cover of a magazine, they get the stock options and the glory.
Oh, absolutely.
But the junior staff, the support teams, the custodial staff who kept the building running, the people pulling the late nights who actually built the foundation, they're entirely forgotten.
Completely erased from the narrative.
Exactly. It's the exact same lopsided justice. But I have to ask, if our intellects have grown so much over 1 million years, why do we still naturally default to this unfair way of thinking? Like, why hasn't our empathy kept pace with our intelligence?
Well, that is the pivotal question, right? The text suggests that without a complete holistic philosophy, the human ego naturally narrows its focus.
Narrows it to what?
To what is closest to it, or what is most visible. When our intellect develops without a corresponding deliberate expansion of our empathy, that intellect just becomes a highly efficient tool for self-preservation.
Oh, wow. So we just get smarter at being selfish.
Basically, yeah. People advance, they build these complex systems, but they only optimize those systems for themselves or, their small immediate circles, their clan, their nation, their shareholders. We've lacked a philosophical framework that forces the lens to zoom out.
So the default setting is narrow because our ego keeps the lens tightly focused on our own survival. To break that, we need a philosophy that fundamentally expands the perimeter of what we consider ours. Let's hear how the text proposes we widen that lens.
All right, back to the reading. When some people started advancing, they thought more about themselves and less about others. Nor did they think about the animals and plants. But if we analyze with a cool brain, it becomes quite clear that just as my life is important to me, others' lives are equally important to them. And if we do not give proper value to the lives of all creatures, then the development of the entire humanity becomes impossible.
The entire humanity, right.
If people neglect the entire living world, the plant world, the animal world, is this not harmful? That is why I say that there is a great need to explain humanity and humanism in a new light. What is Neo-Humanism? Neo-Humanism will give new inspiration and provide a new interpretation for the very idea of human existence. It will help people understand that human beings, as the most thoughtful and intelligent beings in this created universe, will have to accept the great responsibility of taking care of the entire universe.
Wait. So it's not just about expanding human rights. Neo-humanism is demanding a total ecological shift.
The complete paradigm shift, yeah.
It's pulling plants, animals, the entire living world into that circle of empathy.
Precisely. It redefines our relationship with our environment from the ground up. It's not just a social upgrade, it's a universal one.
That's massive.
It is. The logic here is that because we have evolved to be the most thoughtful and intelligent beings, we do not get a free pass to exploit the world for our own convenience. We inherit the profound responsibility to be its caretakers. If we neglect the foundation of the living world, our own development eventually just collapses.
Let's translate that to the daily life of a young professional navigating the modern economy today.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, you graduate, you get a job in logistics or product development. The old mindset that fractured humanism teaches you to just look at the spreadsheet and ask, how does this decision benefit my career? Or how does it maximize my company's quarterly profit?
Right, the very narrow lens.
But neo-humanism fundamentally changes the algorithm of your decision-making. It asks you to look at that exact same spreadsheet and think, how does our supply chain affect the local river system? Or how does sourcing this material impact the wildlife habitats halfway across the globe?
Exactly. It's a shift from an extractive, self-centered mindset to a holistic, universe-centered one. It changes your entire metric for what constitutes success.
Success isn't just a number anymore.
No, success is no longer an isolated number in a bank account. It's measured by the holistic footprint of your actions.
But let me push back here for a second because I can hear the counter-argument forming from the listener.
Sure, go ahead.
For someone who is just trying to get their foot in the door, trying to pay rent in an expensive city, afford groceries, deal with their own anxieties, isn't telling them they are now responsible for the entire universe a massive cognitive overload? Doesn't adopting that level of responsibility just lead straight to burnout?
It's a very fair concern because the modern grind already feels so impossibly heavy. But if we look closely at the mechanics of burnout, it rarely comes from caring too much. It actually comes from a sense of futility and isolation.
Oh, that's interesting. Futility.
Yeah. Neo-humanism doesn't actually add a new burden. It dissolves the isolation. Think about it.
Yeah.
When you only work for yourself, or just to survive the month, you are a tiny, isolated island fighting against these massive, chaotic currents of the world.
Which is exhausting.
Unbelievably exhausting.
Right.
But when you actively align your daily work with the care of the entire universe, you suddenly belong to a grand collective purpose. You aren't just an expendable cog in a corporate machine anymore.
You're an active caretaker of reality.
Yes, it replaces the exhausting despair of the rat race with deep, sustaining meaning.
That makes a lot of sense. The exhaustion comes from the meaninglessness of the system, not the effort itself.
Exactly.
But we have to be realistic here. If we all start operating with this expansive empathy, some people are going to weaponize that.
Oh, undoubtedly.
There are bad actors who will happily exploit a society that cares. How does this philosophy deal with people who just pretend to care for their own gain?
The 1982 text anticipated that exact dynamic. It identifies these bad actors very clearly. Let's look at how it describes them. Who are the people who propagate this distorted humanism? Those who are motivated by pseudo-humanistic strategy utilize this strategy for their own selfish and group interests.
So, fake humanists.
Right. There are generally two types of people who create distortions among humanity. One type of people are doing so unconsciously. They do not at all realize what great harm they are doing. The second type of people are knowingly and deliberately working with pseudo-humanistic strategy. I have described them as human chameleons, those who know how to change their colors frequently.
Human chameleons, wow.
When they discover that all their strategies have been detected, then they will grow desperate. Through the mass media at their disposal, they will utilize all their verbiage, all their abilities, all the weapons they possess. But according to the standards of neo-humanism, they are no better than false gold. And it is certain that when conscious people recognize their true nature, they will fling them into the dustbin of history.
Human chameleons, that is such a brilliant term. So the TOST is warning us about the mechanics of this pseudo-humanism.
Exactly. Pseudo-humanism is essentially selfishness wearing a mask of benevolence.
Right.
It's when individuals or political factions or corporations use the vocabulary humanism, they talk loudly about progress, about community, about rights. But their underlying mechanism is entirely designed to extract wealth or power for their specific group at the expense of everyone else.
If you are entering the workforce today, you see this playbook literally everywhere. The most obvious modern analogy is corporate greenwashing.
Oh, that's a perfect example.
You have a massive corporation that is actively destroying an ecosystem, but they change their branding to earth tones. They run multi-million-dollar media campaigns with acoustic guitars and, sweeping drone shots of forests.
Pretending they care about the environment just to maintain market share.
Exactly. They are changing their colors to blend in with a society that is starting to care. They are literal human chameleons.
They are. But notice how the text says we defeat them.
How so?
It doesn't propose fighting them with their own deceptive tactics. It relies entirely on elevating the collective standard of the society. Pseudo-humanists rely on consumer ignorance and media manipulation to survive. They need a public that is easily fooled by the mask.
Right, they need us to buy the lie.
But when a society adopts the holistic awareness of neo-humanism, the economic and social incentives for selfishness just dry up. The public simply refuses to engage with deceptive practices. The chameleons are exposed as false gold, as the text says, and their media empires collapse because a conscious population starves them of oxygen.
It's like an ideological immune system.
That's exactly what it is.
But I notice the text makes a very careful distinction between two groups, the deliberate chameleons and those who cause harm unconsciously. Why is that distinction so important?
Because it leaves room for grace and growth. Neo-humanism recognizes that we inherit broken systems. Many people act selfishly simply because they're playing by the rules of the old defective system they were born into.
They just don't know any better.
Right. They don't realize the harm their supply chain or their daily habits cause. If those people realize their error, they aren't condemned. They're given the space to learn, to adjust their actions, and to join the collective mission. The only thing that prevents their redemption is their own ego, if they refuse to admit they were wrong once they are shown the truth.
Okay, so we've identified the root of lopsided justice. We know we need to expand our care to the entire living world. And we know how a conscious society neutralizes the human chameleons. But how do we actually get there? Like, individual realization doesn't automatically change systemic global issues. How do we scale this up? Our final reading outlines a very specific mechanical roadmap to build this, doesn't it?
It does. Let's look at the 3 stages. There are 3 stages on this path of neo-humanism. The first one is spiritual cult. What is spiritual cult? It is physico-psycho-spiritual cult. This process will show you how to remove the defects of the psychic world and also the external world. We have utilized science more for destructive purposes than for benevolent aims. We've taught people to think about how such and such bomb can annihilate millions, but we have never propagated a philosophy to teach them to think how millions could be benefited.
That is so true. We engineer destruction so well.
We do. The text goes on. The second stage is spiritual essence. This stage is related mainly to the psychic and spiritual strata. Changes will have to be effected in the mental flow of this collective mind. Humanity as a whole will become converted into a powerful spiritual force. All other weapons will become completely powerless before this Brahmastra.
A collective force.
And finally, thirdly, spirituality as a mission. The final and supreme goal is to make one's individual existential nucleus coincide with the cosmic existential nucleus. In that supreme neo-humanistic status, they will say, yes, I am a neo-humanistic being and I am destined to do great work. Once, long ago, I went to Perulia. I was carrying heavy baggage. I asked a village man, "Can you carry this baggage?" He replied. "Why not? Certainly I can. And I am sure that one day this neo-humanism will inspire the world population to say, why not? Certainly we can."
There is a lot of dense, powerful terminology in there. Let's break down the mechanics of these 3 stages, starting with cult. Now, in modern terms, Cult sounds negative, but here clearly means something else, like a disciplined practice, right?
Yes, in this specific context, it refers to a rigorous, structured practice.
Yeah.
Specifically, a physico-psycho-spiritual practice. This is the foundational stage where you heal the individual mind.
So it starts with the self.
Always. Before you can fix the external world, you have to remove the internal defects of your own psychic world. Think about our technology. Like the text points out, we use our brightest scientific minds to engineer weapons of mass destruction.
Or, in today's terms, we use brilliant psychological engineering to create social media algorithms that make people angry just to keep them scrolling.
Exactly. That is a defect of the mind. Cult is the daily practice of reorienting our intellect so that we instinctively use our tools and our sciences strictly for benevolent aims.
So stage 1, cult, is fixing our own internal compass.
Yes.
But as we said earlier, an individual with a fixed compass doesn't automatically stop a polluting corporation. That brings us to the second stage, essence. How does this scale up?
Essence is the mechanism of scaling. This stage shifts the focus from the individual to the collective. It's about creating a unified wave of thought across the global collective mind. When enough individuals adopt this holistic practice, humanity itself transforms into a singular, powerful spiritual force. The text refers to this collective force as the Brahmastra. Yeah, which in ancient epics is the ultimate unstoppable weapon.
Wait, I see how this connects back to the human chameleons. The Brahmastra isn't a physical weapon, is it? It's that collective ideological immunity we talked about.
You got it.
When the collective mindset achieves this essence, when the baseline standard of society is pure benevolence and holistic awareness, the selfish strategies of the pseudo-humanists are rendered completely powerless.
They can't manipulate a society that operates as a unified conscious entity. The deception simply bounces off.
That is amazing. And that brings us to the third and final stage, mission.
Yes, mission. This is the ultimate culmination of the philosophy. It's described as making one's individual existential nucleus coincide with the cosmic existential nucleus.
Okay, I'm going to need a grounded analogy for that because cosmic existential nucleus sounds incredibly abstract.
It does sound a bit lofty, yeah.
If I'm a young professional, what does that actually look like in my daily life?
Okay, think of it like a massive, complex software architecture.
Oh.
When you first start coding, you might just be writing isolated lines of code. That's your individual existential nucleus. You are just doing your small part, completely disconnected from the whole. It can feel tedious and, frankly, meaningless.
Right, you're just typing syntax.
But eventually you zoom out and you understand the entire architecture of the program. You see how your specific lines of code interact with the servers, how they create the user interface, how they keep the entire global system running smoothly.
You see the big picture.
Merging with the cosmic existential nucleus means you no longer experience a separation between your daily tasks and the universe. You understand exactly how your life, your career, and your actions sustain the entire living world. You aren't just existing. You are a vital function of the cosmos.
That is a phenomenal way to visualize it. You stop being an isolated fragment and become an expression of the whole.
Exactly.
And that leads perfectly to that incredible story at the end. The author is in Perulia carrying heavy baggage and asks a local man if he can help.
Yeah, the man doesn't hesitate.
He doesn't complain about the weight. He doesn't ask what's in it. He just smiles and says, "Why not? Certainly I can."
Such a beautiful response.
It is, and I want to speak directly to you listening right now. When you enter the workforce, when you look at the news, the baggage of the world looks impossibly heavy.
It really does. Climate crises, economic inequality.
The sheer weight of lopsided justice, it is so easy to retreat into cynicism and just feel overwhelmed. But Neo-Humanism equips you with a framework to look at that heavy baggage and say, I am a neo-humanistic being. I am destined to do great work. Why not? Certainly we can. It completely replaces the paralysis of modern despair with this unstoppable, joyful drive.
It gives you the structural framework to be radically progressive and optimistic. And not by ignoring the darkness, but by understanding the exact mechanics of how to transform it.
Exactly. So let's recap the mechanics of this incredible journey. We started by diagnosing the root of the problem, the lopsided justice of the past caused by an intellect that outpaced our empathy. Then we learned the solution, expanding our circle of care beyond just humanity to include the entire living world, plants, animals, ecosystems. We learned how a conscious society starves human chameleons of their power.
The ideological immune system.
Yes. And finally, we explored the three-stage roadmap, cult, essence, and mission that scales individual healing into a collective Brahmastra, turning the heavy baggage of life into a joyful, universal purpose.
It is a profound, actionable roadmap for the future. And if the mechanics of this philosophy resonate with you, we passionately invite you to help make this world a better place for all to live with happiness and justice.
Yes, we strongly encourage you to take action and explore these concepts further. Learn more about Neo-Humanism and PROUT, and again, that is progressive utilization theory. We highly recommend you join a PROUT study circle to discuss these ideas with others.
It's a great way to connect.
It really is. To really firm up your understanding of scientific spirituality and neo-humanism, which is also known as AAOA, Navya Manavadavad, a new ethics for future humanity, subscribe to the YouTube channels at Savipris Movement and at New Human Project.
And for the absolute authenticity of original knowledge regarding all of this material, please visit Anandamurti publication, or you can reach out directly to them via email at ampsbooks@gmail.com.
All of those are incredible resources to help you turn these concepts into a daily reality. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought inspired by the underlying spirit of today's source material.
Lay it on us.
Society and the modern professional world in particular often condition us to think that staying in the dark, keeping our heads down, and looking out only for our own isolated survival is the safest way to exist. But as the philosophy brilliantly suggests, if someone insists darkness is good for them, we say, all right, but just once, why don't you step out and see the light? It's even better.
It really is better.
So I ask you, in your own life, in your career decisions, where are you choosing the familiar isolated darkness when you could be stepping out into the light of a universal collective purpose?